What's up, y'all? Welcome back. It's Tim. This is the fourth and final video of Confident Shadows. This is kind of the review video of all the work I've done in the past 2 weeks and also the process video of the final, and we'll take a look at that as well. So I think the first step would probably be, let's watch the process video. All right, we'll watch that real quick. Now this is about 3 hours trimmed into 4 minutes, and I had to sacrifice a lot of the drawing in the beginning, which sucks because that's where a lot of the thinking happens. That's where you're getting the pose right, you're trying to understand everything, and it just doesn't show it very well. Why aren't you full screen? Go full screen. I guess this little process bar is just going to be here. Oh no, it went away. There we go. But this was the final drawing. Again, so from the very first video, the second video, it was a long one. I don't know if you watched it. It's like an hour and a half long. Sorry about that. But I did kind of like a benchmark drawing. It was of my own character. His name is Stan, and that drawing was to kind of see where I was at for getting the idea of these confident shadows. And this is another drawing of the same character as the final. That way I can kind of compare them two and see, did I learn anything? All right. Now, it's not a fair comparison for this go around because I'm going to call it a pre-final, right? Let's just call it the pre-final. That'll help make talking about it easier. But the pre-final I only spent about 30 minutes on. That was my fault because I recorded video 1 and 2 in the same day and did all the studies and then did the pre-final. So I was pretty gassed at that point. And for this true final right here, I spent my entire studio day working on it, which sounds like a lot of time, but I've only spent, I think it was about 3 to 4 hours on it. Of course, I didn't have that long of footage. I keep having camera problems. That camera keeps cutting out on me randomly. It's annoying. But regardless, it's not a true fair comparison, at least in the level of detail and the level of posing. But we will compare them to see, how do they, what's the differences? And the character has changed a little bit. So if you see on the left side of the screen, the colored version, I've actually done those. I think I did them this week. Further developing this character, Stan. He's part of a graphic novel, comic book thingy I'm working on called Toilet Paper Trash. You will definitely find out more about that soon. And you're actually going to see another character from Toilet Paper Trash a little bit later in this video. But let's focus on the drawing just for a hot second. I'm actually pretty much almost done here. I kind of used the idea of Mike Magnola and merged it with Jock, who we looked at in the very first video. Mainly the Jock part is the abstract feathering is what I've come to understand it. You see it a lot in that leg that it could be all in shadow, but I went with this abstract feathering to kind of darken it, but still leave it there. Right? It's an interesting way that Jock does it. I'm actually done with the drawing here. Since it's fresh, right? I just finished this. about 30 minutes ago. I have some critiques of the posing for sure. Here, let's get into a still of it. Let's go away. All right, we'll just talk about the final for a second. All right, here we go. So, the posing is good. I feel like I could have maybe showed this leg. Here, let me get a brush so I can show you guys. All right, this leg right here, I kind of just let it fade into all of this fabric, and I didn't know how to play with it because the leg is actually about as long as the fabric. All right, I could have brought it up, but for something done in a day, I think it's alright. This whole arm right here gave me some struggles, y'all, because it's kind of like a hand cannon. I was going to show you the concept art, but I don't feel like digging in all my folders to find it. But it's like a hand cannon coming off of all these tubes, and it was so hard to get it in perspective, and it's there, but I don't think it's quite right. But what we're here really supposed to be talking about, here I go on tangents. You'll hear them quite frequently on my videos. But these confident shadows, right? This whole section where the torso, that leg, all the fabric of this, it's kind of like a cape, but it's also kind of like a trench coat in a way. Trench cape, sure, we'll call it that. That sounds funny. I threw all of that in shadow, and that was my idea from the beginning. So I went in with a clear idea of where I wanted the shadows to be, which is in stark contrast to, I think you're here. Where are you? Where's my, I think you're right here. Okay, excuse me while I play around with some stuff real quick. Alright, we're just gonna move you down. So this was the very first study right here, or the pre-final, as we're gonna call it. If we directly compare them, of course this one just looks fucking sick compared to it. But that's also in the detailing and stuff. We're looking at the shadows, right? The thinking of these confident shadows. And here I did this guy. I drew him directly after I studied all those pros. So I kind of had an idea of how I wanted to do it. I think shadowing all of this was cool. I don't think I necessarily needed that harsh of a shadow on this arm. Throwing this arm in a shadow was fine. So you could tell the understanding is there just from the get-go. It was there. It's sloppy. Now, again, with the excuses, is the last thing I did of a 10-hour day. Spent 30 minutes on this bad boy. 3 to 4 hours on this bad boy, right? It's a clear difference in quality just from that. Oh no, I want to do this. It was bugging me that his trench cape was going off screen. But if you just compare the confident shadows, you can definitely see I have improved, right? I have improved. I will talk about something real quick. I think as a design, I think this like double collar type of thing, I think that's pretty cool. Let me know what you think down below. But for the final, I'm pretty happy. It feels good. I'm pretty proud of it. Now, of course, I just finished this bad boy, so it could be that honeymoon bias, and I'm sure tomorrow I will find things about it that I don't like. Well, we could flip it. It still holds pretty true flipping. This gets a little warped. Alright, you can see it's a little funky after I flip it. Which it is what it is. I would tighten that up in the next go around. That's gonna be a challenge with this character right here. But let's do a quick review of week 2. So I showed you the final, but let's look at all the stuff that built up to this final. Alright, let's look at, so these were my imagination ones, so just strictly from my head. This character, his name is Terry. He is another character from Toilet Paper Trash. I'm actually really happy with the drawing. I'm just not super happy with the effects. These little white lines that I put everywhere, they just feel half-assed. But as for the shadows, right, thinking of confident shadows, right, this whole area right here is pretty sick. Right, as you could see, I kind of got a couple different like blacks. Like I got a true black and kind of like a washy black. It's almost like a gray, like a dark gray. But it does pop. I'm pretty happy with these shoes down here, y'all. Pretty happy with them. I think they look cool. And even this pants leg's pretty cool. But this whole area is a little funky. And these were intended to be like the cuffs of his arm kind of flaring out, but they just look weird. Weird design choice right there. But you can see this one I did probably about the middle of the week. So you can see the concept. I'm starting to understand it more. We'll talk about this little guy down here. This was probably like a minute of work right here. Maybe a little bit longer, but definitely under 5 minutes, that's for sure. But just using these shadows to help the design. Did it work everywhere? Not really. Right, I feel like this line got a little weird if I'm wanting to like show this fluffy, cottony type of stuff. I feel like perhaps a different approach for it. But using the shadows when you're just like sketching, I think is pretty interesting, right? Of course, it makes it where you don't have to detail everything, but it can also help you understand the form a little bit better, which is pretty cool. So I only did 2 from imagination. Get ready for something a little different here. Photos. So as you can see, there's color. I felt like this concept of these confident shadows is kind of similar to some ways that people work in watercolor, right? With the idea that you leave the white of the page as your highlight. And I just manipulated it a little bit more and just used it to do the shadows, right? Trying to do it very much in like a Magnola way, right, Mike? And I think it's really cool. This isn't the first time I've done something like this. I actually got the idea from, his name is Bryce something. He does those really big landscapes with all the like little Pokemon stuff. If you've probably seen his work before. Amazing. But anyways, he'll do watercolor sketches, and that's where I got the idea of just letting these colors just play together. But focusing on the confident shadows, doing it this way was fun, interesting. Same concept, right? Same idea, but using color, which could be a little finicky because it could change the values a little bit. But if you're just doing it like thinking of it as black and white, like think of Mike Magnola, right? It works. It works, and you'll see one later that I think works. This one was interesting. The anatomy is a little funky. I did not go in with a pencil first. I just straight brush pen. These were all taken from a Thrasher magazine that I got some years ago. I'm into skating. I was actually a BMX rider, but most people don't really know what BMX is. So I explain it a lot like it's skateboarding. I could think of jumping downstairs, but you're doing it on a bike. All right, that's BMX. But I played in both worlds. I loved it when I was younger. Now I'm too old and my back is old. I'm not that old, y'all. I'm in my 20s for now. But this was fun, just going in straight with the brush pen and doing the shadows as I went, trying to leave like the highlight for this, trying to do this. I did accidentally mess up a foot down here, and I had to notice I moved the foot up too high. This was actually a foot, but I was able to turn it into the truck, so that worked. I was thinking about how Jung Gi will fix his mistakes by like hiding them, right? He does it a lot. Almost anytime you see a tiger in front of a person or something, odds are he made the arm a little too long or the leg or whatever. He was like, okay, I'll just cover it up with a tiger. Which when I heard that, I was like, oh, so he does make mistakes. But of course he did. You know, he's human. We all make mistakes. But this was fun, going straight in with the brush pen. I spent most of my time doing master copies, right? So you can clearly see Mike right here, Mike Magnola. And then these two are actually interesting because they're not from someone who works in a line. This is why am I forgetting it? Simon Stalenhag. I've got 3 of his books. I love his books. I love the way he paints. Very atmospheric. But I was like, let me try to do his stuff, but with this idea of confident shadows, right? I think this truck was interesting because I was able to just kind of throw this whole side into shadows. Now, of course, there's some wash in here. Not gouache, wash. Ink wash. There we go. It kind of worked. I don't know. It feels better. It looks better on the computer than it does in real life, which is interesting. I think it's because when I scanned it, the toned paper, it lightened it up a little bit, and then it looks better. This is the one that I did right here where I'm like, oh my goodness, watercolor can do this. And it's probably also because of the colors. But it was the same concept, y'all. Same concept of how Mike does it, right? I've been working on that a lot. Merging the shadows. How can we pretty much continue the shadows into other forms, right? Like look right here, right? Of course you can't do it everywhere, but it's kind of like a game. It's like, can I have all the shadows kind of connect, right? And then the ones that don't connect, I was going to say they stand out, but not all the time. This one was fun. This was from that book. I don't know which video I showed it in, but where he just penciled everything. He didn't use any ink. This was probably my favorite one I did. I chose this one mainly because of all the complexities here and up here, and how he used the shadows to just make all these things just pop, right? The negative painting, pretty much, but with the shadows. And I thought that was fun to do, and it expanded my mind for sure. But these aren't the only studies I did. I did some more. I branched out a little bit more. I forgot I had a volume of The Walking Dead, and that is all in black and white and gray. It's like a full gray range, to a degree. But I just went in and just kind of studied their inking style a little bit, not a lot. Right, I like how there was just kind of like the inker, Stefano Guadiano, right? Charlie Adler penciled it, but the inker is Stefano Guadiano. They weren't scared of just throwing hard shadows on the face, which you see in a lot of other people. They kind of try to leave the face either light or super textural, and I feel like, at least with this little panel, it was a good mix of both, right? Like the face is pretty clean, right? There's not a lot of marks, but there are some bold shadowy marks. So I thought that was cool. Then I did some zombies down here. They were alright. I was getting a little tired. Oh, I don't know how to say this person's name. I'll try it. Marcos Matiu Mestre. Dude wrote the Framed Perspective book. If you've been in school, if you've been around on YouTube looking at art learning, you've definitely seen the book before. It's one of the big ones, right? But in that book, there's so much just art that he has to explain the concepts and stuff like that. And this girl, she's one of the main people he's teaching perspective. He kind of frames it like he's teaching her perspective. It's kind of fun. But I thought this was an interesting one. I messed up the eye a little bit. I tend to do that. I feel like I always mess up that eye. Whatever my right would be, I always mess it up. Right, the left will look good, and that's usually the one I do first. So that's an interesting thing to remember. I really like this one. It was just a background paint character in this giant full environment painting, and it's all just shadows with just a little bit of negative painting. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, we're almost done here. Got one last thing to look at. Everything. This is Pur Ref. Pretty much you can just throw a bunch of photos in here and kind of organize them how you want. Amazing software or app. I don't know what you would call it, but it is free. Tips are incentivized. Tip the creator of this, man. This program has changed a lot of things for me. I love it. But regardless, this is the totality of everything I did in the past 2 weeks. Now, I counted every little thing, right? So 1, 2, 3, every little drawing. So there's 43 total drawings in the past 2 weeks. It seems like a lot. It is a lot, but a good portion of them were done 10 minutes or less, right? A bunch of these little studies here, stuff that I did at work, right? But some of these were longer, right? Like some of these 30 minutes, maybe an hour, right? I think I spent an hour on these two right here. Of course, the final. I organized it into my favorites. These are out of all. Oh, I think my camera died again. Should I turn it on? I probably should. Let me turn it on. All right. Sorry about that. The camera died like normal. I swear this thing can only record for like 20 minutes and then it's dead. But these are my 8 favorites that I did. Funny enough, this is the only one from the first week. Yeah, that's the only one from the first week. The rest, well, no, you guys are from the first week. All right. So, first week, right here, these 3, and then second week, of course, final. You can see I'm starting to understand the concept. So I feel like this 2-week thing was worth it, right? Like, I was going to do it regardless of recording it or not. The main reason I recorded it is to, I guess, not necessarily teach. It's kind of like light teaching, right? Like, I'm not trying to say I'm better than whoever's watching this. It's more of, I'm trying to figure this concept out and explain it so that I can understand it. And we can see with these 8, I'm understanding it, right? Oh, this is interesting. 4 are master copies and 4 are my own. So that's interesting. I like that. It's a good little split. None from a photo though, or live. So that's it. Well, what am I talking about? This is from a photo. I'm tripping. I do encourage whoever's watching this to try this out, right? I don't think I've explained the idea as well, but it's basically just pick a very specific thing. Look at artists who do that thing and study them, right? Create a benchmark drawing, right? We started calling it, what I call it earlier? The pre-final, right? You could also call it a benchmark, right? Benchmark in the beginning, key in the beginning, first day, ideally. Then do all these studies, right? Don't spend more than an hour, right? Like, just work it into the rest of your studio day. A warm-up, perhaps, which is good, right? Do all these little small, quick, sometimes a little bit bigger, right? A little bit bigger studies, but rapid fire, right? Fail quickly. You've definitely heard that before, as we can kind of see with where I ended up. It's pretty true, right? Like, we're going to bring you over what you refer studies to, right? You can see I failed quickly, right? Like, here, I was starting to understand it, right? These are they were studies from pro, so they're a little bit more refined, because you're just basically copying a pro, right? You're just trying to understand what they're doing. Otherwise called master copy. But regardless, you can see where in the beginning with these 2, kind of had a good idea, but it wasn't solidified. And then you can see here, even with this, like, I'm starting to get my own approach to it, right? Like, I'm not probably going to be doing it exactly like Mike Magnola, right? Even though out of the out of 43 that I chose, 3 of them are Mike's, but those are just clean, man. They're clean. But I kind of like this more abstract approach, right? Like if we look at these guys, right, this textural, loose to a degree approach. I won't even say to a degree. I'm loose most of the time, right? Like if we look at this drawing of my son, I'm pretty loose on like everything. But we look at the final, right? Like I cleaned it up, but left some areas, allowed them to be loose, which is that Jock approach. I only did one study from Jock, which is this Joker right here. But I have looked at his work a bunch, and I've studied it a bunch. So he's somebody I gravitate towards, which makes sense why my like true style kind of replicates that, right? Like I'll have a lot of these like just abstract mark makings or abstract feathering. I think that's a cooler way to talk about it, abstract feathering, right? I've said it a couple times this video, but it's pretty cool, right? Abstract feathering, right? Look at this leg. That's what that is. But yeah, I think this was dope. I think it was well worth my time. Real quick, this is why you should definitely get Pur Ref, right? I highlight them all, images, arrange, optimal, boom. You can size them all too, right? I did it in there, images, you hit normalize, size, and it'll make all the sizes about the same, right? Depends on the images, of course, but it makes them about the same. Amazing for throwing in reference. And did I say it was free? Pur Ref. I would say I would leave a link in the description, but this video is coming out in 2 weeks from now. Will I remember? Probably not. But where's the journey go from here, right? Again, you're listening to this on my YouTube channel, and I am interested in doing more YouTube videos. Some will be like this, some will be different. It's an interesting way of, if anything, it's more for me, it's all about like pretending I'm teaching, basically, you know, like 100 people are probably going to see this, and thank you, those 100 people, right? If there was 100 people in my little studio, I would like freak out, and I think it would be like a fire hazard. You can't even fit 100 people in my house. But regardless, again, I'm not doing this for like the financial gain or anything like that. I'm doing this to help myself get better and putting myself out there basically for like open feedback, you know, right? I don't get that very much outside of school now, right? I graduated about a year ago, and I only get feedback from very few people at this point. And it used to be you would get critiques almost every day. So it's you become a self-critic for sure. But this is the final, right? Let me know what you think, right? All right, I think that's about it, right? Let's get up out of here. Peace.